This is a small town, this is a small town, but we put our roots down, and those roots go deep.
I was involved in a leadership training activity and made wonderful friends there, and one of my friends was Geneva Wicki. We're still very good friends today. And we were standing outside Howenquet Hall in Smith River, which is right on the ocean. It's this gorgeous seascape, and it was very blue sky day, and we're looking at this huge rock, covered with birds flying around it, and it was just so gorgeous. I said something offhand about how beautiful it was and what a beautiful place we live in, and she said, my great-great-grandmother was born on a rock like that. She was held prisoner during the Ottawa genocides. And it was suddenly not the same day that it had been. And I began to think about places and how we think we know and understand a place, but we're only seeing a little part of it based on our own limited experiences and understanding of the world, and I wanted to explore that more.
We were born on that rock. We were born on that rock. We were born on that rock. Rock goes away. We were born on that rock. We were born on that rock. We were born on that rock. Rock goes away.
I'm Karen Beaver, and I play Mei Shum Dun. I'm part of this play because my grandma's in it, and I think if you're going to make acting a career, you should probably be in a play at least once. So I'm doing that.
Is that what you want to do?
Yes, definitely.
So what's important about this play? I mean, you play a very key person in the play, right? Did you learn things from this play? Is it something?
Actually, I was surprised at how much everybody else didn't know. This speech is no news to me. I do this big old monologue about basically the Ottawa genocide, and it's not news to me. I've always been aware of this Native American history, and it seems to be shocking to some people, and it's not general knowledge.
Whites wanted the land, so they made up reasons to take it. Some wanted war. Soldiers got rich from the state militia salaries, and storekeepers got rich from supplying their provisions.
And that's sad to me, actually. So this play is informative then for the people that haven't specifically had Native American history teaching. And also Hmong history as well. It helps people develop more general knowledge about the people around them.
And then other characters emerged, from that sort of basis. I had a couple of students who had been incarcerated, and I had a student, one in particular, whose dad was incarcerated, and she had really suffered as a result of that, even though she may not have been aware of her suffering. Just talking to her about it, it was really difficult for her, and I thought that was worth exploring too. Mm-hmm. So I try to engage people in conversations about things that are interesting to me and that matter to them, and so bit by bit by bit I sort of accumulate a picture, and the picture is what is it like to grow up in Crescent City with the histories that we have in our own lives and in the lives of our ancestors. And I just thought it would be a fascinating thing to write about.
Can you talk about the interplay then between the different histories, contemporary and past that work in the play, like the character whose father is incarcerated, mm-hmm. the Hmong experience, and what's the commonality there between all those different experiences?
Yeah, I think the commonality is that we develop our own narrative, like our own story of who I am, and that gets developed mostly by other people as we're growing up. Mm-hmm. So it's developed by our elders who talk about our family and who we are. And it doesn't matter where you come from. We all have that narrative. And for me, my parents often talked about thrift and how important that was to my parents and to their parents and so on, who had lived through the Great Depression. And so that's kind of part of my narrative too. But we all have that. So we have what our elders have taught us. And we have what our peers have taught us too about ourselves, which is not always flattering and not always helpful. And so they're all connected, right? And that's sort of making us who we are. But we also play a role in deciding who we are. And this is especially important, I think, in adolescence, when young people are beginning to come into themselves, in a sense, and decide who they're going to be. And they put some intentionality into it. And they make themselves. They create themselves. And sometimes they create themselves based on what, the image that others are showing them all the time. And sometimes they have a rare gift, and it's really sort of magical to me when young people do this, is they're able to step out of what people want them to be, sort of pin them wriggling there, and become themselves. And I wanted to write about young people who are in the process of doing that. And I think all 4 of my characters, young people to some extent, are doing that kind of, are undergoing that kind of transformation.
Speaking of work, what are you going to make us do? Gang, I want you to make history. Start with the sources you know best. Interview your families. Find out who they are. What are their hopes and dreams? What brought them to Crescent City? And why have they stayed? We've got a good cross-section of the community here. Together we can learn a lot about our town, just by learning about our families.
Hi, my name is Chris Korpstein, and I play Norman Randall in This is Crescent City. My character is a teacher, really freshly out of college, coming back to his hometown, and wants to see some things change and start a history club to make some changes for the better.
What about this play? What's different about this play for you?
This play has been really different. In some ways it's been more challenging, in some ways it's been easier, kind of for the same reason. We've got no preconceived notions of what it's supposed to be or how it's supposed to go. With a lot of shows, with Oklahoma that's coming up, you've got the music in your head already. You know how it's supposed to sound. You know kind of how the play goes. This was all new. It was brand new, but it also meant that I wasn't having to live up to any expectations of, what I'd seen before or what other people had already seen.
What's your favorite part of the play to perform?
Favorite part of the play to perform? It's really the music. I love the music in the show, especially You Make a Life. Singing with Bob Brissenden has just been a joy. It always is. He's got such a deep, resonant voice that it's a pleasure to sing harmony with.
Paper, make a line. You make it out of wrapper. Make a line. You make it out of what you find. You make a life. You make a life. You make a life. You make a life.
Yeah, so he's trying to assert who he is, but he doesn't really know. He's passionate about history, and that's what drives him, more so even than being passionate about protecting the young people from disappointment. He's really into it, and that's one of the things that makes him a good teacher, I think, and inspires at least 4 students to sort of follow him. But so he has to sort of become a man in a lot of ways, and own that passion for history and risk his job. And he could not have done it without Louise, who is in many ways the most important character in the show. And she started as just a waitress, not a love interest.
Well, I am an expert on the subject. In fact, I know the ins and outs of just about every business in this community.
An entrepreneur, huh?
Wednesdays
Gritz, and I play Louise. And Louise is a typical Crescent City-ite. She has several jobs. She works delivering pizzas, she works at a coffee place, and she is also a tour guide, kind of making up her life however she needs to with the part-time work all over the place. And I am involved in this play. I read it about 1.5 years ago, and I thought it was just amazing, just an incredible story. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of it. And what I like most about it is that the parts that Ruthie wrote they're whole people. They're not caricatures. And every single character in this play is somebody that I know. I recognize them all.
So Louise kind of bossed me around, I have to say. And I love strong women, and I was disappointed in myself for having mostly male cast. It just happened that way. And once one character's gender gets locked in, other characters' gender gets locked in. So I was really glad to let her push me around. And she decided she wasn't just a waitress, that she was really speaking for workers. And then she needed to be in nearly every scene. In fact, I had her as a prison guard in the prison scene, but I think it took away from the intimacy of the scene between Vernon and his father. But so Louise kind of got pushy, and then obviously she had to be the love interest because she was everywhere. How could she be avoided? Yeah. And that worked out so nicely. She helped to develop Norman's character in the sense that he was kind of timid, and she provided that strength for him.
What about the whole, I mean, the economic side of her character, and then the other historical sides, and the genocide, and the displacement, and incarceration, and all of that? How does that fit together in your mind in the play?
Well, that's a really good question. I'd really like to turn the camera on you and ask you, because maybe you figured it out.
No, I haven't. I've been thinking about it, but I haven't figured it out.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's one character in the play that isn't on the list, and that's the community. That's the Crescent City itself. And I think that's part of the story of small rural communities, that peoples are struggling for their own identity, and they don't have the anonymity that a city provides, and they also don't have the opportunities that a city provides, and so people get stuck in working in the coffee shop year after year after year, and that becomes their identity. And for Louise, it was working 4 or 5 different jobs just to try and stay afloat, which is what many people in our community are experiencing.
We want a hero, we need a hero.
The strongest and the kind of guy. That's the land on which we stand. You understand, we'll still be grand.
We'll still be grand. We'll still be grand. Our land will still be grand.
I am the chairman of the school board of Crescent City in Delaware County, and I believe that we should only be talking about the good parts of history of Crescent City, because everything else distracts from our greatness. We should only talk about how great we are and the stuff that pulls us together. And the chairman believes that. He believes that he is not a bigot. He believes he is intelligent, and we'll find out. Come on over and watch.
You can't help but promo stuff, can you?
I can't. No, I can't. I break into a commercial.
So that sounds like interesting. I mean, you're not just a clear-cut bad guy in anything.
No, I'm not
You're
a clear-cut.
doing what's best.
That's right. No, since I'm not Snidely Whiplash, I don't go and tie anybody to the railroad tracks. But what I say in this character, I believe. I believe in the red, white, and blue. I believe in all that stuff. And I think that we should not talk about things that aren't nice. And even though he believes he says it, he says he's not a bigot. But if you watch the play, you'll find out he just may be in a couple of other things, but he doesn't think he is. He thinks he's up there and he's says he's for the kids, and he's doing what he thinks is best. You can catch me on Fox News at 10 o'clock tonight.
The non-redemption of the chairman of the board. And I wasn't sure. We were sort of trying to go through. He doesn't come around at the end. If he did, that would seem sort of pat. That would be kind of too easy.
Maybe,
I was wondering about that because he just sort of gets pushed aside by the community.
Right. So I think a director could do a lot with what he's been given or she's been given with the script, and that you could have redemption there. But it's we don't ever know his name. He's representative of the guy in power, right? And which is why in the script he's chairman, and so he individually as a human being could easily be redeemed, and a director could show that in the end. He could shake hands, and I'll tell you a little bit about the ending that I originally wrote. But, in fact, actually, why don't I tell you now? Because, so I wanted to do some kind of ending where we could wrap up all the loose ends. I wanted you to know what happens to Lily, May Shumdum's grandmother. She becomes the school board chair years later. And I was going to have May Shumdum come back with like a Stanford or, Berkeley sweatshirt with her own suitcase. Like, I think I was imagining the movie rather than the stage show. And so the director didn't go for that, and that was fine. And I think he was wise to do that.
Oh, Howard? Did Howard say no, we've got to stop
Well, actually, Howard never said no, but there were things that I sort of hint at in blocking that doesn't always work. And we sat down many times to talk about the script, and he had a lot of input. So there were a couple of lines that got changed, and we worked out some difficult parts. But Howard was reading it every day. Every day he would sit down and read the script for 6 months. This is what he did, and he figured it out little by little. And it really helps to have as many minds as possible involved in a script. And I'm not shy about that. Like, putting together a musical is complete and utter surrender to collaboration. And I love it.
So how many productions have you directed before?
Oh, in my life? I would say somewhere between 15 and 20.
Oh, wow.
I guess.
Musicals? Have you done musicals before?
No, this was the first.
Were there special challenges then?
Yeah. I prefer actually working with a smaller cast. I like to really work on the detail of. I like to make a play work on a moment-to-moment basis, and sometimes in a musical, if it's a big cast, you spend a lot of time having to be a traffic cop.
Yeah.
And I prefer to direct smaller cast shows, but actually I enjoyed this. It was fun. So,
are there any tips, any pointers, something that you'd like to say to a future director of this play to be mindful?
Yeah. Make sure you get the music way ahead of time. That's one big thing. We had to wait a long time for some of the music. Kirsten did a knockout job because she was getting music like 2 or 3 weeks before opening.
It was a controversial play. There were people who reacted.
I know. I know. Well, first of all, I think controversy is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with controversy. But second of all, I didn't really see why anybody would think this play in particular would be all that controversial. I think that every generation comes along and thinks about what their forefathers, their forebears have done before them, and every generation, I know I was, is pretty sure that they got it wrong, so they try to reevaluate it and fine tune, and I know I did as I was growing up. I still do, So I just think that's a normal part of life of growing up. So I didn't. I guess some people said, "Oh, this is going to be controversial," but well, you know, that's life.
That's art too.
Yeah.
When Ruth first came to us and talked to us about producing her work, we were very excited. Each of us read the script, and we took to heart because it was very new to us to produce something so close to the heart of many people. And it involved a history that many of us were not familiar with. Some of us did not grow up here. We don't know all the stories. In any community, you're going to have stories and a history that maybe people aren't aware of. We wanted to make sure that what was out there was not going to cause a lot of backlash on Lighthouse Repertory Theater and produce more drama. We wanted it to be accurate, but we also wanted to talk with the families that might possibly be involved. And our president at the time, Jenny Young, went and discussed a lot of the issues with many people that we thought might be involved. And so it was good to do that part of the history, do that part of the interviewing, and then realizing, okay, the people that we think might be involved, it doesn't seem to be concerned about it. It's like, okay, good. We can discuss something without talking about people's families. I don't want to pick at sore subjects. I want to produce good theater, and I think this story was good theater. A lot of people came and were very touched by the stories. And they left with a better understanding and a better feeling of, this is our community. We need to know what occurred and where can we go from there. As a community, pulling together. This community does that all the time.
Tell me about this play. What's special about this play?
Well, it's didn't try out, but one of the folks that was going to be Flint had to drop out for some reason, so they asked me to be in it. And so I read through the script, and I don't totally agree with the philosophy of the show because there's a lot of negative about Del Norte County, and I live here because I love it, and I think a lot of us do, and so there's a negative tone to it that I don't agree with, but the bottom line of we're all working together, and it resolves to that we're a team here, small community, we need to work together and care about each other. The result is good, but getting there was a couple things. One line in particular where the male lead is Chris. I can't remember what his name of his role is. Anyway, he says something about, well, maybe our country isn't so great, and I don't agree. You know, that I'm a veteran. You know, that sort of bothered me. But for the most part, it resolves to a really good place that we all need to work together. Whether you're, no matter where you come from in life, you need to work together to make it a better place to live. And I think, and the music's fun. The characters are good. The storyline's good. She does an excellent job in that regard. It's just some of the philosophy of it I don't quite agree with. But what the heck? That's what art's all about, you know.
This isn't our show. We're going to do one on the Wednesday, but this is the last show for this run. So everybody has worked very, very hard. I appreciate it. You've all grown, and just go out there today, throw yourselves into it with reckless abandon. I swear it's the only way it's fun. And just go out there, knock them dead, have fun. That's it.
Last night's audience was amazing. That was so cool.
Good audience. Yeah, Good Audience had a great show. You guys were, it was such a pleasure.
Remember, it's probably a more elderly crowd today, so they may not be as lively. That doesn't mean that you're not doing as well as you did.
That's my wife you're talking about.
I can't tell her.
I really liked it. I cried 3 times. Yeah, it was really moving, and you could tell everyone put a lot of heart into it. It's really cool. Good job, guys.
As a person who denied Native American ancestry for a good chunk of my life, my family back in the 1950s didn't want to admit it, but now it's okay. I was really touched by the show. I was touched by the way that the kids went about their stories, and the way that walls were broken down, especially between the young man and his father who was in prison, and the way that once people start to talk to one another and not talk past one another, that healing can happen. And I think that may be the best message at all for the whole show, is that when we start talking to one another instead of past one another, that we begin to solve the problems.
At first I wasn't sure it was going to be about anything in real particular, but when I started watching it, it's like, okay, there is a lot of history here that people don't know. That goes back to the mid-1800s. Stuff we never hear about. I didn't know about the Tallahs, the pain that they went through. Although I know the federal government was, in the extermination business at that time. I didn't know it was so local here and so embedded. Then, of course, when we have the Hmong influence in the community, I didn't know their story. I had no idea that was going on. No one ever told me. And they talked about old pain, and then we have the pain they feel now. Like with the kid with his dad in prison, that's a lot of pain to go through. That's a lot of burden to carry. And of course, everybody has a story. If you don't ask it, you're never going to know. People make assumptions. Everybody needs to tell their story. They're right about that. I agree with that 100%.
It was a tearjerker, obviously.
It's really good.
But we enjoyed it. It struck a nerve. It struck several nerves with several people. The people we've been talking to, they've talked about this and they've talked about that. I like it. I think it's great to get people thinking and get people talking. And I was born and raised here.
Yeah, exactly. What got to you?
The song that Becky sang was really moving. And the school board, yes, fight. Chris, I taught Chris. Just so much.
What did you think of the play today?
I thought it was fabulous. I am incredibly proud of Ruth Rhodes. She put so much of her heart and soul into this, and I just can't believe that came from her brain. I'm blown away. I'm just blown away. It's good for our community and great for LRT. I only wish I could have been a part of it.
Yeah.
So what would you like to see happen with this play now that it's debuted?
I would really like to see it put on in other places, because I think the story is universal for small towns. And that's what I had in mind when I wrote it. There are just a few changes I think I'll make, and then I'll send it out. Well, I mean, the story is about young people and people in transition, and it's flattering to think that someone would say, "Hey, that's your audience. You got to capture that part of your audience." I mean, I think I have also. There's a wider audience than just young people, but they're interesting to me, and I was interesting to myself at that age too. Like, these are people who are creating their own identities, and the world is open in many ways that it ceases to be open when you're saddled with a wife and kids and whatever. But no, it's open in this wonderful way. Their story is just beginning, and they are the writers of their own stories. So I think that's exciting for everyone. It's the hero's quest. And it doesn't matter how old we are, it never gets old. We love that quest.